Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. You've loved our next guest as an actress in Orange is the New Black and most recently in Superior Donuts, but she is also a published author. In 2016, Diane Guerrero published her first book, In the Country We Love, which tells the story of her own family. Before we welcome her to the stage, let's take a look at a clip from Superior Donuts.
You know, I have some bad news, too. A bunch of ICE agents are doing a sweep of Uptown, and I have to be their local liaison.
Immigration agents here.
Yeah.
And you're cool with helping them round up innocent people?
No. Chicago police can't arrest anyone based on their immigration status, but the feds can. And we have to babysit them, which sucks, because then we're caught in the middle.
Oh, golly gee. Are the po-po having a hard time?
Hey.
Hey.
First and foremost, after having just read your book, which you published in 2016, what is it like to be able to be on a show, not something like Orange is the New Black, but a sort of regular sitcom on a major network that is, and getting to tell this story?
Well, for me, it's so important that that I get to talk about important issues through my work, and so Superior Donuts already hits on very topical issues, and we've done episodes on race, we've done episodes on police brutality. Now it's just a 20-minute sitcom, but we try to touch upon the subject to start conversations at least. And so I'd written my book before I got on the show, and that was one of the topics that I talked to the writers and the creators about, and I said, I would love to do an episode on immigration, and I think that they were like, well, naturally that would be an episode that we would want to do. And for me, that's just very special, just because it's so important to have these kinds of conversations, and especially through any medium, say comedy or drama, but to do it through comedy, I think is very special.
What's so interesting to me about Superior Donuts right now is that for some reason the reboot of Roseanne is getting all of the credit for being a sort of topical comedy on a major network, and Superior Donuts has kind of been doing it for a couple years and very well representing both sides of issues that it tries to talk about without using dog whistles and without using things to try to rally a very specific kind of base and audience and pander to them. Why do you think Superior Donuts doesn't get the same sort of credit or the same sort of steam that something like this Roseanne reboot does?
Well, I think the Roseanne show was very popular back in the day, and it's, I haven't seen an episode of this, like the new reboot, but I think it's because Roseanne has been on the air for a long time, and on Superior Donuts we have mostly people of color kind of talking about these things. So
you're doing it better, is what I'm saying.
I think I'm like, what is he saying?
I was saying that you're doing it better as someone who's watched both.
Yeah, I don't particularly enjoy Roseanne, but I think Superior Donuts has like a nice spin on. It's a fresher kind of take on issues, and we also have really great characters on the show.
Great actors.
And great actors. We have a great cast. Yeah, I think people should start watching Superior Donuts a lot more than they do.
What was it like going from Orange is the New Black to Superior Donuts in terms of you're just sort of blessed with these amazing casts?
It's been really great to be on all the shows that I've done so far, and I haven't been doing this for that long. But the other day I was just like, I think I've been in the game for 8 years. I've been saying 6 or 5 years for a very long time is how I keep myself young. But it's interesting because all the shows that I have done do touch on very important issues. I mean, mass incarceration, and then I worked on Jane the Virgin that features a predominantly Latino family and showcases the Latino family in such a different way, in a unique way. And now Superior Donuts talks about very important issues. So it's just very fitting to who I am. And
is that something that you go after, or do you find that that's something that kind of tends to come to you?
I think it's come to me, but I think that perhaps I have been maybe I get more excited about roles like these, where I get to talk about something, where I get to start conversations. It's important to me. I did it with my book. I do it with the work that I do now through as an immigrants' rights activist. And so the shows that I do, I would always hope, and I always will hope that can start different types of dialogues.
When you went in for Superior Donuts, had your book already been published?
Yes, it was published in 2016.
It's a very good book.
Thank you.
It's heartbreaking, but also, I mean, in the end, inspiring. But it is a fairly heartbreaking story at times.
Yeah, it is. It's my family's relationship, me and my family's relationship to the immigration system in this country, and I basically talk about how the immigration system is broken and it's in need of updating, and we need immigration reform. And I talk about my very personal story of how my family was separated through deportation back in 2001. And basically all...
You're 14, right?
I was 14, yeah. So I talk about the damage that it does to the family, and I talk about the immigrant community, which is my community, that had been slandered and just attacked by Trump's campaign. And so I thought it was an important story to tell at that time, just so that you can put really a human face to the issue.
And is now still being slandered by not a campaign, but an actual administration.
Yes.
Put in charge with running the country.
Exactly, which is very sad. But this is why we need to, we need shows like Superior Donuts to talk about these issues. And I would hope that this inspires other shows to do so as well. I know Grey's Anatomy did an episode that it followed a DACA resident. Which I thought was very important as well. But yeah, what I want to see is what I want to watch are things that represent our society and what's really going on.
One of the things that I found so powerful about your book wasn't just the story of you being separated from your parents, but the sort of psychic toll it took on you as you grew up as a teenager, and the fact that you, being an immigrant and being in this place, had really no space to sort of deal with the emotional problems that you had. You kind of had to bury all of it for a while.
Right. Well, my parents were immigrants. I was born
Excuse me,
here.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's okay. But
Child of an
But
immigrant.
at these times, you got to let people know what's up. You know what I mean? I got my papers. Okay.
ICE heard that and they're kicking. Yeah, I got you.
I know. Well, because if it's sad, but sometimes when people think of you as not. They look at you and they automatically assume that you're sort of taking advantage of the system. When
The system is so hard to take advantage of,
I know,
guys.
really. And the people who actually do take advantage of the system, I'm sure do not look like me. But
According to the numbers, they don't.
no, they don't. I talk about the mental the mental health issues that one experiences through such trauma, and I'm very candid about it because I do believe that mental health is super important. Self-care is super important, and when you are going through something as traumatic, and it can be anything. I mean, it can be sexual abuse, it can be a family being torn apart, it could be bullying. Whatever you are going through, chances are you might need help. At one point, I needed a lot of help, I think, in order to get to the next step of my life. And I did so, and so that's why I'm so candid about it, because I believe in it.
The scene in the book, it's not necessarily a scene, it's a moment from your life, where you sit down with a therapist for the first time and sort of spill your guts.
Yeah.
I found so powerful because I think many of us who have gone to therapy for the first time have had an experience somewhat like that, but never have we had that very specific experience that you had, which is so weighted and I think is very rarely talked about when we talk about how we are splitting up families right now and what it's doing to the children.
Oh, totally. And especially for the community that I came from. I came from a community where healthcare really isn't afforded. It's not something that is a normal thing to do. It's usually considered a privilege. Sometimes you're often thought as crazy. Oh, well, we have bigger problems than this, so why take care of mental health? And it's obviously not talked about in our education system and how important it is.
And you couldn't talk about it much with your friends and your teachers as well because you were scared of, what could happen to other family members and how you would be judged.
Oh, sure. I mean, shame is a huge part of it. Feeling shame of where you come from or what's happened to you. And growing up the way I did, keeping quiet was sort of the best defense that you could have. But I think that when you do that, it sort of silences all of your other parts, right? So it doesn't let you be honest with yourself or others, but that means you won't be participating politically. That means you won't be participating in your community, which you absolutely should do and is so necessary to your future, to your surroundings, to everything that involves you and every part of your life depends on you participating civically.
Just your well-being.
And your well-being.
Socializing is a sort of intrinsic part to human growth and also feeling a part of the world.
Absolutely. And so the minute you start feeling like other people are judging you, you sort of stop yourself from maybe being the best that you can be. You don't know all of these sort of like hidden talents that you might have, or how you can develop professionally and personally when you're not honest about these things. So that's why I feel like, I mean, especially being on a show like Orange is the New Black really sort of gave me that boost to say, man, there are so many things that need to be talked about. And now, especially under this political climate, I need to share my story in a very real way. And hopefully, maybe people can start seeing the other side of the conversation instead of somebody, sitting on CNN talking about what they absolutely know nothing about.
Or talking about something that they're paid for by some committee to say.
Sure, and I haven't really experienced what it really is to be separated from your family, what it really is to go through mental health issues. And so I just try to be as honest as possible, and I talk about my struggles even now as an actor, as an artist, because of my what I went through. But at the same time, I talk about how I'm trying to turn all of this trauma and all of this sort of negative things that have happened in my life into strength. And I think that a lot of people are doing that now, and a lot of women are doing that now. I mean, with Time's Up and the Me Too movement, and I think each year we're getting better and better, and I just hope to see all of us using our voices at any time, at every time when it's necessary, when it's not. I mean, it's so important to talk about these very sensitive issues so that we can work through them and hopefully end up in a better place.
I gotta ask, I mean, speaking of using your voice, what did you think of Michelle Wolf's White House Correspondents' Dinner monologue this weekend, where she closed it by saying, like an immigrant who was brought here by their family and did nothing wrong, I gotta get out of here.
It was very good. Yeah, she got slammed for it.
I think wrongly, personally.
Yeah, so do I. It's like let the woman speak her mind, and what she's saying is very true, especially for what's happening right now. I didn't think it was out of line at all. I mean, gosh, have we heard some of the things that this administration has said? I mean, those things are
nothing
way out
worse
of line.
than anything that they have said.
Sure.
I'm curious, you published this book in 2016. He won the election in 2016.
It didn't work. I wrote the book hoping that this book would.
Yeah, why didn't you just quit? No.
I'm like, this is gonna be it. I'm gonna save America.
But he won, and ICE ends up getting ramped up in 2017 and doing even more immigration roundups than prior. I mean, during the Obama administration, ICE had also been ramped up just a little bit more than previously.
Yeah.
But Trump's administration and Homeland Security at this point seems that they have gone full force. It's we're hearing of them rounding up actual American citizens, and
it's like it doesn't matter whether you have a green card now. It doesn't matter if you have a residency. They're going after everybody, even and of course DACA students or Dreamers, who obviously were allowed to be here legally. But they're going after them too.
So have you heard from people since the publishing of your book who have had similar incidents to what happened in your life? Have people reached out to you and
all the time.
Been affected by your book?
All the time. I mean, these things are happening every day. Families are being separated every day. Mothers are being detained on their way to drop off their children, and fathers alike. Students are being detained on their way to class. These things are happening, and every time I go, speak at a school where, there are these hardworking kids who are just trying to live every day a normal life and study so that they could actually be be active members of their community are scared every day that they're going to be snatched. And that's sort of how it feels. It feels like an invasion of the body snatchers or something, because it's happening in outstanding rates.
People are just disappearing in a lot
They're
of
just
ways.
disappearing, and then after, there's like some intense music going on. It's happening all the time, but now you're hearing about it. Now people are actually recording it. Now people are actually having dialogue about it. So I guess if you want to see a silver lining, there's that we're actually being vocal about what's happening in our country and the dire need for immigration reform, which obviously this administration has not offered.
That's been the one silver lining of this entire administration, which is that they are so bad at PR and hiding their maliciousness that everybody has kind of gotten really politically involved and upset about it.
Sure, I think that there's no room for being silent anymore. There's no more room for fear or to be ashamed of who you are. I think that we are human beings. We are real families, and we're fighting for that. And I guess what I'm trying to do with my work is I hate it. It's not, sometimes I feel, oh my gosh, I'm talking about this way too much. I'm beating a dead horse, or like people are going to get sick and tired of me. But it's like, if I don't continue talking about this, and if I don't continue setting examples, then who's going to do it if I don't? And I want to constantly continue bringing that to my work, as boring as it may seem to some people, or people
You get fan mail that's like, hey, this is boring, stop.
But
Interesting conversation.
some people don't want to hear about how real it can get, right? And nobody wants to hear about people who've been deported. I mean, people get deported all the time, and then it's like you never hear from them again. It's like as if they'd never existed. And I'm not trying to let that happen. I'm going to remind you every day that this is going on. And I do it, I do it with my book. I do it in my talks, and I'm trying to do it obviously in every show that I work on. I'm like, before I sign in, I'm like, can we do an episode on immigration? Thanks.
Is that what it was like with Superior Donuts? You were like, I will only come onto this show if we do an episode about immigration.
No, but I did get when I did have my interview, I guess, with the creators. I basically just talked about my book the entire time. They're like, we get it. Well, read your book, and I'm like, read it, because we can do something there. Call me. And then it did happen, so I thought it was great.
Right, and we're in the second season right now, right?
We're in the second season. I came in as a new character in the second season.
Right.
I wasn't a part of the first season. Right. Yeah.
So they brought you in, and they were like, "Oh, great, we're gonna build storylines solely around her book."
Exactly. The next season is just gonna be all about my book. It's basically gonna be my life. The show's gonna be Superior Donuts in the Country We Love. Right. That's kind of
each character is gonna start playing members of your family instead of their original characters from the show.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just gonna turn around. No, I think that I hope that if, in the third season we'll get to just dive deeper into these issues, because there's only so much you can do in a 20-minute episode.
Yeah. Let's get some questions from our audience. Who has a question?
Hi, I'm Dominique. As a fellow Latina, I just want to tell you thank you for sharing your story. I think it's so inspirational, so thank you. Love you.
Thank you.
And so my question is, how did you get into acting? Do you think the challenges that you faced helped you get into acting, or was that a way to outlet that? Yeah.
Sure. I think everything that has happened in my life and everything that happens in people's lives lead you to a certain point. So, as my experiences don't define me, they certainly shape me. And it's funny. I started acting classes because I started therapy, and it was a suggestion to do something that I wanted to do, that I loved. Or something that was going to bring me joy. And so I just tried it and really, really liked it, and saw that it made me the happiest. And so I'm like, okay, there's nothing to lose. Everything else, I'm like, I've already come this far. There's nothing to lose. My family's already separated. I went to college. I wasn't that good at it. What am I doing? And it definitely inspired me to tell more stories. I didn't exactly get into acting though because I wanted to tell my story personally, and I think that's where I ran around in circles for so long because I didn't quite understand that. I didn't make that connection that was my mission, that I had to tell my story.
Well, as a member of a marginalized community that's rarely represented on screen, it's almost impossible to not end up telling your story to a degree, right?
Well, yes, but at first I was so desperately trying to run away from that truth and run away from that life and say, hey, I'm not a victim. This happened to me, but this isn't going to reflect in my everyday life. And of course, now it does. Because eventually you have to really look deep down in yourself and say, what has affected me the most? What do I care about the most? Well, I care about my family. I care about the life that we've had, and it wasn't for not. It meant something, and so now I'm gonna bring it to life through my work. And I'm hopefully gonna open some eyes along the way, hopefully help some people realize some of their own dreams, some of their own passions. I've gone to different schools where people have been affected just like me, either losing a parent or having a parent that's detained or a brother that was deported or even a neighbor or a friend or a boyfriend or a husband. And they tell me all the time how the book has inspired them and how they're happy that I'm very vocal about this issue because they have never heard it in this way, and that they are inspired to tell their own stories. And I won't say the name of this young man, but he recently experienced his dad being detained, and he's in an Ivy League school. I mean, a super smart kid, go-getter, and he made the very difficult decision he went to go to his family's house, and he made the very difficult decision. He said he thought he was going to not finish out the semester and actually just stay at home. And he came up to me and said that he read the book, that he knew I was coming to the school, and he decided to finish out the semester and keep going. And on top of that, he announced it in his school because he wanted his community support. And now to put yourself out there like that is so very difficult. And if I can inspire someone to share their story and to let people know what is going on, then I'm happy that I shared mine. Even as difficult as it is. I'm so tired of telling this story. You have no idea. Because it just takes a lot out of me because you're revisiting this every day. And, some people agree with you, some people don't. So seeing stories like this young man who made the decision to share his own and to come back and finish school despite what was going on with his dad is very rewarding.
I imagine it gives you a lot of substance when it comes to what you do as well, rather than just being an actor and telling other people's stories. Now it feels like every time you go out there and whether it's Superior Donuts or whether it was Orange is the New Black or Jane the Virgin, it feels like it means a lot. It means a lot more.
It does. I think for a community that is so underrepresented and so misrepresented, it does come with a lot more weight to be out there, to be so visible. I'd like to do it on a bigger level, and I know that that's my process and that's my journey. I'm just going to continue going from here, and I'm going to venture out to do different things. I mean, I did a docuseries recently, and I'm producing a docuseries with a young woman by the name of Julissa Arce, who's also an author, not Arthur, the artwork, but an author. And it's going to feature the lives of people who have been deported and sort of the aftermath of that. And so I never knew I could do any of these things. I never knew that I could also be an investigative journalist and do that kind of work and interview other people and be empathetic and help them communicate their story in the best way without judging them and without any preconceived notions, just letting them be who they are. And I hope to continue doing that kind of work. And I'm just discovering new things about myself every day. I never knew that I was a smart person. I never knew that I had any of that. And sometimes it takes seeing others that look like you doing things that are great. So whether it is an actor on television, telling stories, doing comedy, writing, a doctor, whatever, you need to see these things. And it's so important for my community, especially that rarely sees themselves doing extraordinary things. But we all know that that's not true. We know that we're so capable. We're very capable of wonderful things, and that's why I feel like it's so important for me to be out there, even though it's scary and it's hard every day. Like going out there and auditioning and competing with all these amazing, talented people who have, way more resources and maybe less blockage. But, it's what I want to continue doing.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, wow, they get a
There it
clap.
is.
All right.
I was going to tell you, I have the opposite problem. As a straight white man, I grew up with too much representation, and I need people at 34 now to tell me, stop it. You're not that smart. You're not as good as you thought you were. Just stop it.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes a difference when you get that from an early age. That hey, this is you. You can do this. You can do that. You're special. You're enough. So it's something I had to learn later. To learn that I was special, learn that I was enough, learn that I was smart enough. I'm not perfect, and learn that that perfection
Doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, right? It's
Strive for perfection is the strive for failure.
Exactly, and that if you are just constantly saying yes to yourself and putting yourself in positions that are healthy. Then there's nothing, it's only up from there. And if you start on a journey to be an actor or a writer or whatever, and maybe you can deviate from that and discover new things that you never knew about yourself, and boom, you have a new career for like 10 years, and then you move on to something else.
So you're telling me I got 3 more years left, essentially.
You got 3 more years left, then I'm going to be doing your job,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And so have you seen? I don't know if you've seen Superior. Have you seen Superior Donuts? So there's the character played by David Koechner. He's an expert on the gig economy. That's like his whole thing. And so I've sort of been very vocal about the gig economy and how you can make something. Make $1 out of 15 cents, I guess. You can just find new things about yourself every day and go for it.
Let's get some questions from our audience. We have one question coming?
I forgot about
We have
that.
one question. What do we got here?
Hi. I was reading that you were in the process of making your memoir into a series. I was wondering what was the process behind that, and if there's any news on how that's going along.
Yes. So it's not. I tried to make it into a series, and that was, we had that going for a while. The network rejected it. Boo. That's okay.
Boo.
It just wasn't. It wasn't time for it. As my mother would say, no era el tiempo. Está bien. Otra puerta se abrirá. That means another door will open. And so then I had it. So I had it at CBS first, and then I had it at Fox, and then they also rejected it. So right now, I just scrapped that script, and now I'm in development of something new and fresh, and I'll just continue doing it, and I could continue knocking on doors, going to different production companies, seeing if I could hook up with different writers. My story will always be my story. Sometimes I get nervous because I get like so much FOMO. I look at Deadline or and I see all these people coming up with projects, and I'm like, an immigration story? That's my thing, And I get so worried that my story won't be told. But the truth is that I only have my story. No one else has my story, and no one else has your story. So if it hasn't been told, don't compare yourself to other stories that are being told. And it's so great that those stories are being told, because the more we talk about these things and the more we see them, I think the better it will be for all of us as a whole. So I always have to stop myself when I start getting anxious and saying, "Oh my God, I don't see my story being told. I don't see my story being made," and I see and I constantly see other people bring to life their own stories in their productions, but I always have to remind myself that that's just not me, and that's their story, and then that's okay.
You've got that like inner white executive in your head going like, we've already got an immigration
I
story.
know.
Get out of here.
Well, because I'm so used to going in these rooms, it's like, nah, we already got somebody who's like sort of short, has your build, and yeah, we don't want you. You know.
Bummer.
And well, that's the interesting. But you can't let that get to you. You can't think of that.
Yeah.
And that's what I call them my students because I go to so many different colleges. I'm about to become like a professor, by the way. But I always tell them it's just like no one has your story, so continue on telling yours. You know, well, we've already heard that. No, we've heard. Believe me, there's a reboot of Roseanne out there, so.
Yes.
People are continuing to tell the same stories, and that's totally accepted. Yeah. Imagine when they get a chance to hear yours. That has never been heard.
Diane, Superior Donuts is on CBS. What night is it on CBS?
Mondays at 9.
Mondays at 9.
Tonight at 9. Please watch it.
It's a fantastic show. I personally think it's I think it's the better version of the Roseanne reboot, even though it's not like Roseanne at all. But it is topical and smarter and covers the sides in a much more clear way.
Thank you.
It.
And
yeah.
it's a great cast, and we're really
very much so.
Yeah, everyone's really funny. I mean, I'm getting to work with amazing comedians and Judd Hirsch and Katie Seagal, who are like TV legends. And for me, I'm just such a sitcom queen. I mean, when I was a kid, I was like watching TV Land. And I was like, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Taxi, all of these shows were Mary Tyler Moore, my goodness, was my show. And then, of course, Married with Children. So for me, it's really a dream come true to get to work with Judd Hirsch and Katie Seagal.
And your book is on shelves. It's been on shelves since 2016. In the Country We Love, My Family Divided. If you haven't read it, go pick it up. And everybody, please give a round of applause for Diane Guerrero. Let's hear it.
Thank you very much.